Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard tactics video. And oh boy does it feel to be good doing the tactics videos again. I know at the beginning of the week we had a little bit of fun with the lore video, a bit of fun with epic model time, but now it's time to get back to the bread and butter, back to the Mordian glory classics, some Imperial Guard tactics, and that is what we are going to be discussing today. But before we do, I just want to say a huge thank you to Commissar Mel for sending in some awesome pictures of his Imperial Guard army in action, taking on the disgusting golden boys, the custodies, the custards. Side note, I actually quite like custard in real life. I will have bowls of it just on its own as a dessert, and if you haven't tried it, you really should. It's delicious, but make sure you have it warm. Don't have cold custard. Cold custard is literally just the spawn of chaos. Do not have it. Anyway, back to what we want to be talking about. Massive thank you to Commissar Mel for sending in these pictures. Really cool. And he also sent some tactical insights as well, which he said he was so glad that he had brought his basilisks. Because if he hadn't, he would have had no way of getting through the armour of the custodies. And that is what I've been saying. I've been saying you need them basilisks, guys. You don't need to go nuts. You could take 3 like Commissar Mel has, or you could just take 1 to supplement your manticles, but you should probably start thinking about having a basilisk in your list just as a bit of a sniper unit, and it can just pick off some wounded models, or it can blow up like a sturdy spiker turn, something like that. But mass thanks to these pictures, and I have to say I really like the conversions you've done, especially on those tanks where you've got like the big wide breaches on the end. Looks really cool. And so thank you to these pictures. If anyone else has got any cool pictures they want to use in my videos, please post them on my Facebook page, or you can email them to me at mordianglorytv@gmail.com. But that's enough of an introduction. Let's get straight into today's tactics video. So today, guys, we are going to talk Psychic Scum. We are going to be talking Astropaths and why I personally believe they have become essential for any competitive Imperial Guard list going forward in the current meta. And obviously I could just leave it there and you guys could just trust me, but I'm actually going to provide you with some reasons on why Astropaths are so important. Essentially, guys, if you're not aware, an Astropath is an elite choice. It's 35 points and it's a single model. And if you look at the stats of them, they're kind of like unimpressive. Stats wise, you've got like a dude who's got like weapon skill 5+. He's got ballistic skill 6+. He's strength 3, toughness 3. He's got a wound. He's got 3 wounds even. He's got an attack, leadership 6, and a 6 save. This guy isn't even wearing flak armor. You know, so why is he so important? Well, it's not his physical fighting capability that you're interested in. Obviously, he's a psyker model, so it's his psychic abilities that you're really interested in. Now, traditionally, when you're looking at psykers, and this is over many editions, over many different armies, you often look at them in terms of their offensive capability. You're like, okay, these guys can do smites, or you think of them from like a buffering capability. Like, okay, these guys can, you know, make my units more defensible. That's really good. The interesting thing about the Astropath is both of those things are essentially a secondary concern. You're not that bothered about his defensive buffing capabilities. They are quite good, but you're not that bothered about them in the current meta because things are just so deadly. And you're not that bothered about his like firepower output. Yes, it's great to be able to have a source of mortal wounds, but this guy can't even smite very well. He's got a rule where basically when you're testing to do a smite, you only roll 1d6 rather than 2d6. So the first time you do a smite with this guy you've got a 33% chance it's going to go off on like a 5 or a 6, and if you do another smite, it's a 16% chance, and after you've done 3 smites, this guy literally can't get a smite off. It's just terrible. So if you're not that bothered about his buffing capabilities, and you're not that bothered about his offensive capabilities, what are you taking him for? Why has he become essential? Well, I think many people will be aware of this, but this video is for those of you that have, like me, got a natural disdain for psykers and you overlook them. You really want to be taking this guy for his special ability, Astral Divination. Astral Divination is a really cool ability that allows Astropaths to just really boost the damage output of your army. Essentially, at the start of your shooting phase, pick an enemy unit within 18 inches of the Astropath. For the duration of the phase, the unit you picked gains no bonus to the saving throws for being in cover when it is targeted by attacks made by friendly Ashman units within 6 inches of this model. So, essentially, guys, you can remove cover. And this is a really big deal. Now, it's always been a good ability. It's always been good. But I would say Astropaths are kind of fallen out of favour for 2 reasons. Firstly, A lot of people have just been running around rocking Demartia cannons anyway, and you don't really need the extra ignore cover if you're rocking like an AP3 weapon, or you're rocking like Metz like an AP4 weapon. So a lot of the time people have been going, well, I'm just bumping into invulnerable saves anyway and above AP -3, so I don't really need the Astropaths. Ignore cover isn't that great. So that's the first thing. Obviously, that one is now not as relevant. That sort of point for not taking the Astropath is not as relevant because of Armour of Contempt. And Armour of Contempt is big, guys. We are seeing a huge resurgence in power armour armies. Tyranids are at the top, of course. And you've got Harlequins as well, and Eldar, and all this kind of stuff. But, trust me, if you go to a tournament, you are guaranteed to face some guy running power armour. You're guaranteed to face it at least twice in like a two-day event. You know, Marines are always really prevalent, and even when they weren't doing very well, you're always guaranteed to face at least Marines once. Now, with Marines on the resurgence, you've got Blood Angels players smashing it left, right, and centre. You know, so it's really important to be thinking about being able to counter Armour of Contempt. Okay, Sisters of Battle, Bloody Rose Sisters of Battle are making a huge comeback, and there's a really good reason for it. Indirect fire has been nerfed massively. The thing that killed Sisters was they were fragile and they had to hop from cover to cover, and that's when there was so much indirect fire everywhere. They, you know, Sisters basically had to go and sit in the no-no corner for a while. But now, with indirect fire being massively nerfed, people aren't taking anywhere near as much, apart from guard players. Obviously, we still love indirect fire. Sisters of Battle are back in business, and let me tell you, they really spam Armour of Contempt. They love Armour of Contempt because they get really cheap models on it. Like Sister Battle's like, what, 10, 30, between 10 and 13 points? I don't know off the top of my head. But like, it's cheap. You know, you can get 2 of those guys for like the price of like a Primaris Marine, roughly. Or should I say 2 of those girls. Apologies. 2 of those people. Let's be safe on this one. You get 2 of those people for the price of like 1 Primaris. So they get like double the Armour of Contempt efficiency, and it affects vehicles, and they've got cheap vehicles, and all this. Paragon war suits are loving it, all this kind of stuff. So Astropaths are really important because Armour of Contempt reduces all AP by 1. So suddenly those Demartia cannons are only AP 2. If that sister is in cover, then they're on a 2-up save. Then you only put them onto like a 4-up save. That's not good enough, like at all. You know, that's not good. That's just bad. That's 50. You're doing 50% damage from a Demartia cannon. 50% of all the wounds you do just get stopped. That's one way of looking at it. And Demartia cannons are great, and they should definitely be a go-to. But when you think about it that way, you're like, okay, well, you know, my Demartia cannon is going to get like an average of like, let's say you've got Cadian or you've got gunnery experts, whatever. Back cannon's going to get like an average of like 8 to 10 shots. So I'm going to get, let's say 9 shots. So I'm going to get like 6 hits. I should get about 5 wounds, but then, thanks Armour of Contempt, I'm either going to get 2 wounds through or 3 wounds through. Like 2.5, but it could go either way on the dice, right? It's massive, Armour of Contempt. It's huge, and that's why you're seeing power armor make a huge resurgence. So, you need to be able to counter it, and Astropaths let you do that because you just ignore the cover. So suddenly, that person in cover, that Marine, that Sister of Battle, whatever it might be, is in cover. Suddenly they're like, oh, so I am back on my 5-up save. And let me tell you, there's such a huge difference in a 4-up and a 5-up. It might not seem like it from the online statistics, but from someone who plays into just hardcore lists over and over and over again, if I can get my opponent onto a 5-up save, that's where my life goal needs to be. So that's the first thing to mention, and I can't stress that like enough. But there was always a problem with Astropaths, and it was thanks to armies like Grey Knights and Thousand Suns and stuff like that, who, you know, Thousands especially, they have a stratagem where, not stratagem, a secondary where basically if you take a Psyker, then they can take a secondary that's like, right, okay, well, if I do more damage than you in the psychic phase than you, then I get like loads of victory points for it, and they max it out. Now, 3, 4, 5 months ago, Thousand Suns were everywhere, Grey Knights were everywhere. Okay? Now, even with Armour of Contempt and stuff like that, now we're seeing a little bit of a resurgence in those armies, but they really dropped off. Grey Knights dropped off massively. They're coming back a bit, and they're definitely something you need to be aware of. And Thousand Suns, again, coming back a bit, and 30 Scarab Cult Terminators, 20 Scarab Cult Terminators, that's something you need to be aware of. But let me tell you, honestly, they're not as prevalent as they once were. Grey Knights at one point were like the most popular faction. They were winning everything. They are not there anymore. They're powerful, but they're not there anymore. People are thinking like Eldar and stuff like that. That's where people are right now. Blood Angels are coming back, or Salamanders are doing great. All this kind of stuff. Death Guard weirdly aren't doing as well as they should be. So that's kind of the second reason why Astropaths are kind of good now. And I've, so 4 months ago, beginning of the year, 5 months ago, I was going to events and I was running into Grey Knights and Thousand Suns every tournament. If it was a 2-day event, I'd run into both. If it was a 1-day event, I'd run into one. Guaranteed every single time. Like a third of my games I was running into them. Recently, and bear in mind I go to like a tournament every month on average, and so recently in the last 3 tournaments that I've been to, I've not faced them. I've just not run into those armies. Okay, they're just, and that's both in when I was in the American meta for Adepticon, I did 2 events over there, and then for the UK meta I've been to a couple of events. That's both of them. I've just not run into them. They're just not as prevalent anymore. So it's not such an Achilles heel for your army. So those are kind of the reasons you want to be taking them. Those are the main things, and especially if you're in the UK meta, but I see this happening a lot more in the US as well now. Terrain is becoming so heavy. It is so easy for someone to jump from one piece of terrain to the next, and if they've got a small enough and a fast enough unit, they never need to be out of terrain, ever. That's where we're at right now. So it's really important to be able to counter terrain. It's really important to be able to keep a tab on what kind of armies are prevalent in the meta at the moment, and that's why Astropaths are having a resurgence. How many would I take? They used to be like 15 points a model. They're now 35 points a model. That is kind of pricey, I'm not going to lie. I would probably say you want to be going for like 2 Astropaths. I don't think you need all 3. But certainly, check it out yourself and find out what works for you. But when I've been trying them, when I've been running them, 2 has been more than enough. And how I run my 2 is I run one of them supporting my Demolisher tanks, and I'll normally take about 3 now with the changes to the game that I'm contempt one. I'm running 3 Demolishers. And so he just literally runs alongside Demolishers and they just blow something up every turn. And I have another one that's kind of like spare, but also can run alongside some of my infantry squads, packing some heavy weapons over there, helping out the plasma boys and stuff like that. Also really helpful for if I'm running like Scions in a separate group. I can have the Deep Strike to support, so almost Deep Strike around the Astropath, which works quite nicely. Or what I typically find is I want to target 2 units, because remember this only affects 1 enemy unit. So typically how I've used this, I have both of my Astropaths running alongside my Demolishers. I take the cover off 2 enemy units, and then I fire 1 Demolisher at a time. And if I do what I want to the first unit, I'll switch to the second unit. And if not, then it's not the end of the world. Just bear in mind, the reason why this works so well with like Demolishers, the reason why this works so well with like Scions, and like Dakar Primes, and anything that's like 24, 18, 24 inch range, is because the Astropath itself has got an 18 inch range. So you're going to have to be up close and personal anyway. You can't have the Astropath like doing this like Basilisk in the backfield. It just doesn't work. So that is why I think Astropaths are essential, and that's why I think you guys need to be seriously considering them. Okay, they're not as much an Achilles heel, and they're such a huge boost to countering Armour of Contempt and the current meta that we're finding ourselves in. That's my experience. That's based on frontline, battlefield experience. But every meta is different. Let me know what you guys think. Comment down in the comment section below. Before I end the video, I want to say a huge thank you to all of the channel Patreon supporters. It is thanks to the Patreon supporters that I'm able to keep going. It's as simple as that. The fact that I can afford to go to tournaments, the fact that I can afford to try out different things, buy different models, all that kind of stuff is entirely funded by the patrons. If I didn't have them, yeah, Mordian Glory wouldn't be able to carry on. It's as simple as that. So massive thank you. And if you're interested in becoming a channel patron, check out the link in the description below. But we'll leave it there. Thank you for watching, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.